Unraveling the film's threads, Drami helps you see beyond the screen. Hello, global film explorers. Welcome to Dramagico. I'm your host, Drami, by popular request from you, our viewers. Today we dive into the eerie and captivating world created by renowned Hong Kong author Lee Biawa. We'll be analyzing the classic 2013 Hong Kong horror anthology, Tales from the Dark Part 1. Based on her original work and co-directed by three distinct filmmakers, Simon Yam, Lee Kai-Ngai, and Fruit Chan, this film is like a triptych depicting the city's hidden, darker corners, composed of three independent yet interconnected short stories. Today we're dissecting the very first tale, Stolen Goods, directed by and starring Simon Yam himself, alongside powerhouse actors like Tony Leung, Ka Fai, Kelly Chen, Susan Shaw, and Da Chan. Are you ready? Let's follow the lens deep into this chilling fable about poverty, desperation, and supernatural retribution. Tales from the Dark, and the night is indeed disorienting. As the daytime extravagance fades, Hong Kong streets at midnight feel drained of life, vast and silent. Only the restless neon signs persist, stubbornly flickering, silently testifying to the city's insatiable noise and desire. In this quiet urban theater, a pair of twin girls, their faces ghostly pale, wander barefoot like phantoms through the streets and alleys. They look everywhere, desperately calling out for something. But in the dead silence of the night, only echoes answer. One girl stumbles into a dark street corner. Before her, a terrifying sight. An old sewing machine operates on its own. Beside it stands a woman, equally bloodless in complexion. Her eyes are vacant as she holds scissors, mechanically, rapidly cutting fabric the girl hands her. Suddenly, the woman snaps her head around, her eyes flashing with malice. Staring at the trembling little girl, she then viciously throws the scissors. Thwack. They embed themselves deep into an iron gate across the street. The scene abruptly shifts. The other twin girl, face etched with terror, runs to the entrance of a closed restaurant. Instantly, three figures materialize inside. The leader is a portly man, his face sharing that same unearthly pallor, flanked by two expressionless attendants. The fat man clutches rice dumplings, stuffing them madly into his mouth, yet uncontrollably vomiting as he eats, mumbling incoherently. So full, so full. Noticing the starving, freezing girl at the door, the fat man lurches up. Still eating and vomiting, he walks over, casually grabs an empty glass bottle, and smashes it towards the girl. Without a shred of mercy, startled, the girl turns and flees, running blindly into the middle of the street. Just then, a late-night tramway speeds towards her, seemingly about to collide. But then, something utterly bizarre happens. The tramway doesn't brake, doesn't swerve. It passes right through the girl's translucent body like a phantom. Alright, viewers, those eerie opening vignettes were like a prelude, hinting at the desperation and strangeness lurking beneath the city's surface. Now, our main story officially begins late at night. Inside a rental room so narrow it feels suffocating. There's only the simplest, barest bed and a walkway barely wide enough for one person to squeeze through. On the table beside the bed lies a chaotic pile, a cheap alarm clock, a string of firecrackers, a few children's toys, and two identical dolls exuding a subtle, creepy aura. Our protagonist, Guan, lies restless on the bed, tossing and turning. The humid, subtropical heat has drenched him in sweat, as if he just climbed out of water. There's no air conditioning, no television. Only a broken old electric fan that silently mocks his plight. Overwhelmed by the oppressive heat, Guan shouts into the air,
"Can't sleep. It's killing me."
Then, as if venting, he abruptly jumps up and performs a strange dance. He even turns to the two silent dolls and demands,
"Why's it you two little troublemakers keeping me awake?"
After this bizarre, almost breakdown-like solo performance, Guan finally collapses from exhaustion, falling onto the bed, and quickly succumbing to sleep. A new day brings no new hope. Guan wakes to the shrill scream of the alarm clock, numbly gathers his tools for odd jobs, and slings them over his shoulder. He chugs a bottle of water, hastily washes up, and relieves himself at a filthy public restroom. Then he shuffles to the cheapest bakery on the corner, buys for $1.50 worth of cheap bread with his last coins, and gnaws on it while rushing to a temporary construction site. On the way, a gruesome car accident scene briefly catches his eye, causing him to pause instinctively. However, this momentary pause comes at a heavy price. Merely 5 minutes late, Guan is publicly called out by the foreman and ruthlessly fired. For being an undisciplined temporary worker, he tries to argue, pleading about the hardships of life and the unfairness of it all, but receives only cold indifference. Defeated, he could only turn and leave, dragging his heavy feet. Returning to that cage-like rental room, Guan is overwhelmed with frustration, with nowhere to vent except by talking to those eerie dolls, as if they are the only ones who can hear his misery. But life must go on, mustn't it? The next day, Guan finds a new job cutting meat at a barbecue pork shop. However, the shrewish owner constantly nags and criticizes him from the side, complaining the BBQ pork is cut too thick, whining that he uses too much sauce. Guan says nothing, silently enduring it, sweat constantly dripping from his forehead, soaking his shirt during a break. Guan steps outside the shop for some air. He sees a little girl in ragged clothes with timid eyes. Feeling a pang of pity, he secretly hands her a small piece of BBQ pork. But just then, this little girl's face, it's identical to one of the pale twin ghosts from the film's opening. Almost simultaneously, the shop owner inside looks up towards the doorway in her eyes. Guan's facing empty space, more chillingly. The owner sees one of Guan's pant legs twisted at an impossible angle, and a corner of his shirt behind him slightly lifted as if tugged by an invisible hand. Seeing this, the experienced owner immediately understands Guan has encountered something unclean. Attracted a supernatural entity without a second thought, she instantly pays him his wages for the day and tells Guan to quickly find work elsewhere. A job he just found, not even lasting a full day, lost again because he encountered a ghost. Guan could only leave, his steps heavier than ever. This time, it seems even the stray dogs on the street cower and tuck their tails in fear when they see him. But he doesn't notice. The ghost of the little girl is following closely behind him. Before heading home, Guan habitually walks into the same bakery again. As he pays and reaches for the bread, the clerk coldly informs him, "Sir, the bread price went up." This final straw makes Guan's world seem even bleaker. The scene flashes back again to the glutton ghost. He's still endlessly eating and vomiting, this time gnawing on greasy roast chicken. Still groaning in agony. "So full, I'm really so full." This forms an extreme, ironic contrast with Guan's plight, barely able to afford even the cheapest bread. Back in his rented room, Guan chews on the hard, cold bread, constantly cursing this wretched world, complaining about his unfair fate afterwards. He unfolds a thick stack of old newspapers, trying to find a glimmer of hope in the dense columns of job ads. Suddenly, a news article about a wealthy businessman's deceased wife's expensive burial items being stolen from the cemetery catches his eye. At this moment, Guan freezes. A dark, crazy idea, like the ghost girl who has silently appeared beside him, quietly worms its way into his mind, possessing him without hesitation. He tilts his head back again and drains another bottle of water, as if needing liquid to quench his inner moral struggle. Then he sets off, his destination, the public cemetery. Night falls. The cemetery is grim. Guan stares at the luxurious tombstones of the wealthy, occupying vast plots of land, his eyes filled with resentment and bitterness, muttering,
"Still hogging so much space even after death."
He then stealthily slips into the columbarium building. Approaching the stacked niches holding ashes, it turns out his plan is to steal someone's urn to extort money from the deceased's family. He first targets the small niche of a middle-aged man, who looked well off in his photo. Taking out his crowbar and hammer, he struggles to pry open the heavy marble ceiling slab, carefully removing the urn inside. Then he slips in a pre-written note stating, "Ransom for $50,000, and leaves his contact information. Next, he repeats the process, choosing the urn of an elderly man whose tombstone photo showed many descendants, prying it open, removing it, inserting the ransom note. Seeing the sky begin to lighten, Guan quickly gathers his tools and slips back to his rental room with the two heavy urns. Back in the tiny space, he casually places the stolen urns on the shelf by his bed, as if they were ordinary trophies, not the remains of the dead. He picks up the bottled water from the table, tilts his head back and drinks it all down again, seemingly trying to wash away his unease. Finished, he takes out red paint and a newspaper, copies some kind of protective symbol he saw somewhere onto his iron hammer, probably trying to use this magic weapon for courage or protection. Ring, ring, ring. The sudden, jarring phone call makes Guan jump. He scrambles to answer. It's the children of the elderly man whose urn he stole. But what they say next catches him completely off guard. The voice on the other end is cold, stating they have absolutely no intention of ransoming the ashes, even telling Guan to just dispose of them, saving them the trouble of yearly worship. Then, they hang up abruptly. This heartless response infuriates Guan. He feels insulted, his risky theft belittled. In a rage, he storms into the bathroom and dumps the elderly man's ashes straight into the toilet bowl. To vent his anger, he viciously flushes it. Watching the ashes swirl away, he even flushes it twice more for good measure before stopping. Back in his room, he carelessly tosses the empty urn onto a stool, then lies down, filled with resentment and exhaustion, and falls asleep. In the dead of night, something strange happens. Guan's door is suddenly pushed by an unseen force, creaking open. He jolts awake, warily looking towards the door. But there's nothing outside, only the dead silence of the night, along with the intermittent sound of the door being pushed, faint, eerie whispers, and "Please drift in." Looking closer outside the door, Guan is horrified to see several blurry figures, glowing with an eerie green light, persistently knocking on his door. Hearing these unearthly sounds, Guan leaps out of bed, instinctively glances at the empty urn, then grabs the hammer painted with his makeshift talisman and slams it hard on the floor towards the door. Strangely enough, the pushing sounds and eerie noises outside immediately stop. Still shaken, Guan cautiously checks the crack under the door. Nothing unusual. Then he drags over a stool, trembling as he stands on it, trying to peer through the small window above the door. But the next second, a terrifying, decaying face suddenly presses against the window, meeting his gaze. Guan screams, utterly terrified, falling backward off the stool onto the bed. His forehead slams hard against the bed frame, instantly drawing blood. The intense pain and extreme fear make him snap. He grabs the talisman hammer and throws it with all his might towards the door. A few shrill screams are heard from outside, and the greenish figures flee like frightened rabbits. Just then, the phone rings again at the worst possible moment. Still terrified, Guan answers. A low male voice on the other end says he saw the note and is willing to pay the ransom for the urn. They arrange a time and place. Before midnight, Guan arrives early at the agreed-upon footbridge to wait, thinking about the windfall he's about to receive, which could solve his current problems. His mood lifts slightly. He even treats himself, ordering a rare bowl of hot noodles from a street stall and wolfing it down. But strange, faint noises keep drifting from the surroundings, making him uneasy. Just as he leans over to check under the bridge for anything unusual, a cold voice calls him from behind. The newcomer is a well-dressed man in a suit, looking quite refined. He introduces himself as the deceased middle-aged man's cousin. He says he'll pay the ransom, but also sternly warns Guan not to bother his sister-in-law. Again, with that, the suited man hands Guan a thick envelope. Guan, in turn, gives him the first urn he stole. The transaction complete, Guan eagerly steps aside under a streetlight and greedily starts counting the cash in the envelope. The suited man stands, watching him coldly, and asks,
"You do this kind of despicable thing, stealing people's ashes. Aren't you afraid of ghosts knocking on your door at midnight?"
Guan doesn't even look up, counting the money, replying mockingly,
Being broke is scarier than any ghost knocking.
While Guan is focused on counting, the suited man quietly takes out his phone and snaps a picture of him. But when Guan excitedly finishes counting and looks up again, the suited man has vanished into thin air. Confused, Guan turns to look down from the bridge, and a chilling sight greets him. The suited man has instantly reappeared down on the street below, pressed tightly against a glass door, staring blankly up at him. Looking closely, the suited man's posture and expression are exactly like a funeral portrait on a tombstone. This utterly terrifying scene makes Guan instantly understand. He suddenly remembers. This man's face is identical to the photo on the first urn he stole. He wasn't dealing with any cousin, but the ghost of the dead man himself. Immense fear grips Guan. He grabs the bag of what he thinks is money and scrambles away in panic. Following the suited ghost memory flashback, the truth finally surfaces. He was indeed the owner of the first urn Guan stole, and the sister-in-law he mentioned was actually his beloved wife. He had died instantly in a tragic car accident caused by answering his phone while driving. His wife was devastated, unable to accept his death, so she placed their matching pair of cell phones together inside his urn, desperately hoping, perhaps, to connect with her departed husband across the divide between life and death. At the same time Guan was dealing with the ghost, the wife, asleep at home, seemed to hear her husband calling her in the darkness. She woke abruptly with a strong sense of unease and rushed to the cemetery. Sure enough, she found her husband's niche violently disturbed, but strangely, the urn itself was back in its place. When the wife anxiously opened the urn to check, she found the cell phone she placed inside was missing. Searching frantically, she eventually found the phone deep in a corner of the stone coffin. The wife quickly borrowed a charger from the night watchman. When the phone screen finally lit up, a photograph appeared right in the center. It was the picture of Guan, greedily counting the money under the streetlight on the footbridge. Meanwhile, Guan, having fled back to his rental room, is still shaking, the terror of the ghostly encounter fresh in his mind. Panting heavily, he takes out the thick envelope of money, wanting to reconfirm his earnings. But as he tremblingly opens the envelope and sees what's inside, he freezes completely. Thunderstruck, inside the envelope, there's no Hong Kong currency, but stacks upon stacks of spirit money, the kind burned for the dead, printed with the face of the king of hell. Shocked again, Guan nearly collapses mentally, fumbling. He grabs the ceramic burning basin used for offerings, lights a match, and throws the sinister paper money into the basin to burn, mumbling incoherently, perhaps trying to ward off bad luck. However, in his extreme panic, a burning ember jumps out of the basin, landing precisely on the string of firecrackers he had carelessly left piled on the corner of the table. Pop, pop, pop. Boom, instantly the firecrackers ignite, sparks flying everywhere, quickly setting fire to the surrounding clutter and flammable materials. The tiny rental room becomes a raging inferno in seconds. As Guan screams and bursts out of the room, he is already a human torch, struggling and burning in the dark night. The camera cuts. We see the BBQ shop owner, the one who understood the supernatural. She's holding the two eerie dolls from Guan's room. She hands the dolls to the twin ghost girls, who have appeared beside her, and the voice coming from the owner's mouth now is Guan's own final, agonizing screams of despair. The final image is deeply meaningful. Guan, now a ghost himself, his face unrecognizable, eyes vacant, is compelled to take the hands of the twin girl ghost, fellow lost souls. He shuffles slowly, merging into the empty street, lit by cold neon signs yet utterly desolate, disappearing into the boundless night. The first story, Stolen Goods, ends here. Okay, explorers, we've finished the story of Stolen Goods. Does it leave you with a chill, a heavy feeling? Some of you might be wondering about those seemingly random ghost scenes at the beginning. Here's my personal interpretation. The initial ghost we saw, the endlessly sewing seamstress ghost, represents clothing. The glutton ghost eating and vomiting represents food, Guan's cramped room, eventually consumed by fire, and his act of stealing ashes, the deceased's home, allude to shelter. Finally, tramways passing through the ghost girl signifies transportation. These directly mirror the four basic necessities of life: clothing, food, shelter, and transportation. Through these ghostly symbols, the director seems to be asking, if life is a constant, tortuous struggle for these basic needs, does death offer release? Is it true that once you die, all troubles cease, everything is resolved? From a filmmaking perspective, director Simon Yam demonstrates a masterful grasp of atmosphere. He extensively uses dark, oppressive color palettes, claustrophobic spatial compositions, especially in Guan's room, and suggestive close-up shots like the dolls, the urns, details of the ghost to seamlessly blend the harsh reality of Hong Kong's underclass with supernatural horror. Guan's character, portrayed by Simon Yam himself, his psychological transformation from initial struggle and desperation to madness and destruction, is depicted with raw, convincing power. Li Bi's original stories excel at using ghosts to explore human nature, using fantasy to critique reality. The film faithfully inherits this quality. Stolen Goods isn't just a simple horror story about stealing ashes and being haunted. It's a mirror reflecting the tragic plight of marginalized individuals, pushed to the brink by poverty, unemployment, and social indifference in the shadows of a prosperous city. It also explores the inescapable karmic consequences when moral boundaries are crossed. Guan's tragedy isn't solely the result of ghostly vengeance. It's also the inevitable outcome of the crushing, invisible pressures of society. In summary, Stolen Goods, as the opening chapter of Tales from the Dark, sets a dark, thought-provoking tone for the entire film with its profound social commentary, oppressive atmosphere, and well-executed horror elements. It reminds us that sometimes, what's more terrifying than ghosts is the desperation of being alive. Alright, that's our deep dive into the first chapter, Stolen Goods, from Tales from the Dark. What are your thoughts on this story? Or are you more intrigued by the next details? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe to Dramagico, and ring that notification bell so you won't miss our explorations of more fascinating films. I'm Drami. See you next time. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Drami. See you in the next video. Bye.